Everyone, Aladar here, and welcome back to my World of Warcraft Legion class preview. And in this video, we're going to be looking specifically at the Death Knight. Now, the Death Knight isn't going to be going over any major reconstruction in the class. The class is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much staying the same, but there is one significant thing that they are changing. That's the rune system. So, as you know, they generally have 2 of each type of rune, and what they're doing basically is they're taking away the different types of runes, and they're all just having one generic type of rune. This is going to make it easier for you to do your combos. If you have trouble, like me, when I play a DK, I have trouble keeping track of which runes I can still use, etc., etc. So you end up just kind of button smashing and then using other abilities that just use runic power. So anyways, they've gotten rid of the different types of runes. You've got 6 regular runes, where 3 of them can be refreshed at any one time. So anyways, let's dive into this. We'll first start off with the Blood DK. Now, the Blood DK, as it says here, the core abilities are going to be familiar. In particular, though, they've changed the Death Strike to cost no runic power, or to cost runic power instead of runes. So that is one significant change that they've made to Blood. This basically results, as they say, in a more clear choice of resource expenditure. So anyways, we can basically, the abilities that you have are going to pretty much remain the same with only a few small changes. If you're new to World of Warcraft, I'll read off the abilities here. If you're a long-time user of or player of World of Warcraft, you'll probably be very familiar with many of these abilities. So let's go through them really quickly. Blood Strike is one of the staples of Blood DKs. It costs 1 of your generic runes now. It's a melee and it's instant. Instant strike the enemy, causing moderate physical damage and infecting the victim with Blood Plague. Okay, and that generates 10 bonus runic power. So that's how you help generate your runic power that you use when your runes are down. Blood Plague is a disease that deals minor shadow damage and heals the caster for 1% of the maximum health every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. So you want to get Blood Strike on people whenever you're able to. Marrow Rend, it costs 2 runes. It's an instant. You smash the target, dealing strong physical damage and generating 3 charges of Bone Shield. Now, Bone Shield surrounds you with a barrier of whirling bones that reduce all damage you take by 25%. Each damage attack consumes a large charge, lasts for 30 seconds or until all charges are consumed. So if you've got Blood Strike on a couple of targets and you've got Morrowind on a couple of targets, you get very tanky suddenly because you're reducing a lot of the damage you're taking and healing yourself for a little bit as well. Now, Death Strike costs 40 runic power, so you want to be able to generate your runic power with your Blood Strikes, right? And then once you get up to 40 runic power, you can use Death Strike. It's an instant. It focuses dark power into that strike that deals strong physical damage and heals you for 50% of all damage taken in the last 6 seconds. If you are below 35% health when this is cast, all runic power is consumed, increasing the potency of the healing effect. Now, the mastery that you have is called Blood Shield. Each time you heal yourself with Death Strike, you gain 40% of the base amount healed as a physical damage absorption shield. It also increases your attack power by 20%. Now, Death and Decay, again, it costs 1 rune, so you got to keep track of these runes, but it's going to be a lot easier now that they're all just generic runes. Corrupts the ground targeted by the Death Knight, causing moderate shadow damage over 10 seconds to targets within the area. While you remain in the target area, your Blood Strike will hit all nearby enemies. So you'll be able to use this Blood Strike to hit all nearby enemies, and you'll be able to regain 1% of your maximum health, I believe, for each Blood Strike that you hit. So if you're in an AoE situation, you can be regenerating a lot of that health. Now, Bone Storm, it costs 15 runic power. It's an instant on a 1-minute cooldown. A whirl of bone and gore batters nearby enemies 3 times per second to deal minor shadow damage, healing you for 1% of your maximum health. So there you go. As a Blood DK, that's kind of your tank spec usually, and you're able to stay up quite reasonably. So we'll move down to Frost. Now, the mechanics of Frost have not changed that much at all, actually. So they say one small area where we found room for improvement, however, is killing a machine's passive interaction with the core rotation. While the automatic crit strikes it provides feels great, it's often better to ignore this proc in favor of spending resources as fast as you can. So They're going to try and get you to be able to use other abilities rather than just constantly spam the same thing. Obliterate, obliterate, obliterate over and over and over again whenever you can. Anyways, so here's the basic abilities. If you're not familiar with them, Howling Blast costs 1 rune, blast the target with a frigid wind, dealing minor frost damage to that target, and minor frost damage to all other enemies within 10 yards, infecting the targets with frost fever. And then what frost fever gives you is it's a disease that deals minor frost damage and has a chance to grant the DK Knight or Death Knight 5 runic power for every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. So I'm assuming that's for every frost fever that you have, so you can generate this runic power pretty quick. Now Obliterate's going to cost you 2 runes. It's a melee instant it's a brutal attack with both weapons that deals massive damage. Now Frost Strike is 20 runic power. Remember, there's a difference between runic power and runes if you're not familiar with DKs. There's 2 different forms of energy that you're basically using up to use your abilities. So some of these rune abilities you'll be using and they'll generate runic power, and then you use the runic power when you've got no runes left, basically. Chill your weapons with icy power. Quickly strike the enemy with both weapons, dealing massive frost damage. And now Rhyme is your passive. There is a passive that you'll have. Your Obliterate has a 45% chance to cause your next Howling Blast to consume no runes, generate no runic power, and deal 300% extra damage. So your Obliterates have a chance of dealing just a ton of damage. So Killing Machine is another passive. Your auto attacks have a chance to make your next Obliterate automatically critically strike. So again, you can see a lot more damage coming out from the Frost DK. Remorseless Winter, it's 1 rune, instant cast, 30 second. Radiate Extreme Cold, dealing moderate frost damage to all enemies within 10 yards of you over 10 seconds. So it's a little bit of an AoE. And your mastery is going to be Frozen Heart, which increases all frost damage done by 40%. So you can see a lot of these abilities, they're very high DPS type abilities, whereas the Blood DK was more of a tanky type of class. So you'll be able to blow or blast down enemy targets pretty quickly. Now the one special talent that they've let out of the bag to let you know about is Glacial Advance. Costs 1 rune, it's an instant on a 12-second cooldown. Summons glacial spikes from the ground that advance forward, dealing moderate frost damage to enemies near the eruption point. So that sounds pretty neat. We'll move to Unholy. Now Unholy's, of the 3 specs, is probably the one that's been changed the most. We'll go through very quickly the gameplay. Unholy is receiving a slightly more mechanical change than Blood and Frost. To better realign with their unique identity, we want to ensure that Unholy continues to be the spec with the most active use of diseases. In this regard, we recognize that Festering Strike lost its luster over time and have developed a new mechanic to ensure that the abilities remain integral. The ability remains integral to the Unholy rotation. So let's take a look at the abilities really quickly here. For those again that are not familiar with DKs, DKs tend to have pets that are with them as well to help them do damage, but whereas the other 2 classes generally don't. Anyways, Outbreak is the first ability. Again, it's a Unholy DK ability. Deals minor shadow damage and surrounds the target with a miasma lasting for 6 seconds that cause the target and all nearby enemies to be infected with Virulent Plague. Now, Virulent Plague is a disease that deals a moderate shadow damage every 3 seconds for 21 seconds. It erupts when the infected target dies, dealing moderate shadow damage, split evenly between nearby enemies. The disease also has a 30% chance to erupt each time it deals damage. Festering Strike costs 2 rounds. It's an instant that deals massive physical damage and infects the target with 1 to 3 festering wounds. Now, a festering wound, once you've infected the target, is it's a lesion that may be burst by Scourge Strike, dealing moderate shadow damage and generating 3 runic power. So that's a very quick way to, that'll help you generate some of your runic power, right? Scourge Strike, it costs 1 rune. It's an instance. It's an Unholy Strike that deals a strong physical damage and strong shadow damage. Triggers a single stack of festering wounds if it is present on the target. Death Coil. This is again another Unholy DK ability. It's 30 runic power. It's an instant. So again, you're casting these when you got like no runes left and stuff like that. Fires a blast of unholy energy at the target, causing strong shadow damage to an enemy and restoring 10 energy to your ghoul. So that's your pet. Sudden Doom is your passive, or is one of your passives. Your auto attacks have a chance to make your next Death Coil cost no runic power. So if you proc this, you can cast a Death Coil, you'll see the proc, and then boom, immediately cast another Death Coil. Dark Transformation is an instant on a 1 minute cooldown. You transform your ghoul into a powerful undead monstrosity for 20 seconds. The ghoul's abilities are empowered and take on new functions while the transformation is active. So it's a little bit more powerful pet. Death and Decay. It costs one rune on a 30-second cooldown. Corrupts the ground targeted by the DK, causing moderate shadow damage over 10 seconds to the targets within the area. While you remain in the targeted area, your Scourge Strike will hit all nearby enemies. And your mastery is going to be called Dreadblade, which increases all shadow damage done by 50%. So they have the potential to do pretty decent, particularly AoE damage. So your passive, or your unholy specific talent that they've told us about, is called All Will Serve. This is a passive. Your Raise Dead spell summons an additional skeletal minion, and its cooldown is removed. So you can have maybe more than, far more than one pet. So anyways, so far I really like the fact that they've kind of pushed DKs in different in these sort of directions. They haven't made a huge overhaul. I do like the fact that they changed the runic system. I know some people didn't like the fact that they had to keep track of different types of runes. This kind of makes it easier, but you know that there's going to be experienced DKs out there that just look at this as dummying down the class. So it's up to you whether you like it or not. I actually do like the changes. You have two different types of energy to watch over anyways, runes and runic power, so it just kind of makes it a little bit easier. Anyways, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave a comment below. You can join me on Twitter, or you can follow me on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Aladar. You can talk to me live there while I'm playing games, and if you feel like it, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you soon. Hope you have a good day. Bye.